Kia ora, welcome to Mana Talanoa, Legends of League. I'm Andre Whitaker, and today it's a great pleasure for me to welcome in one of the former Upper Hutt City Tigers, Sonny Whakarau. He had a long career playing not only for Upper Hutt, but back home in the Levin area, up the Horowhenua, and then a long professional career over in the north of England in the UK, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So, tēnā koe, Sonny, welcome to Mana Talanoa.
Kia ora, Andre. Kia ora, my bro.
No, awesome to have you on. Look, there's a lot to look at. It seems like you've been around the game for a long time, from as a player and then now as a ref, and we'll talk about all those things. But bro, let's go back to your heritage, your whānau, your whakapapa. Tell us about your family heritage. Where are the Whakarau family from?
Originally we're from Taranaki, so pretty much Taranaki te Maunga, Aotea te Waka, Ngāti Runui, te Iwi, Ngā Raru, te Hapu, Nonga Whakata, and also Pātia te Awa, and Waiotiri te Marae. So pretty much all my whānau originally we're from Pātia, Taranaki, and then we sort of moved down, migrated as we did back in the day and all that. And I pretty much got raised in Taitoko Levin, in the Horowhenua, and I got raised there, and married a beautiful wahine from Ngā Tokawaru Marae, Ngāti Raukawa, and that's pretty much my roots. Also got ties, a lot of ties into Tūhoe through my whāngai father, Paura Whakarau, and also to Nonga Whakata, to Ngāti Parau, Gisborne East Coast, to my real father, I suppose, my birth father, Brian Penny. And that sort of brings us back to a story where Brian Penny, okay, so my heritage, and I didn't really actually find out to this till I actually started playing rugby league down in Wellington, that my father, Brian Penny, because I had two fathers basically, but Brian Penny played for Waterside back in the days in the middle. He actually played with Ron Farrell. And I think Brian was from what I can gather, the kōrero that I've heard, he was a sort of tallish, skinny white boy winger on the wing, but apparently he had a pretty good motor and he was quite fit from what I can gather. Obviously, some of the older fellas out there, like the Ronnie Farrells and that, would obviously know a lot more about him as a footballer. But it's sort of quite ironic when I first come down to Wellington, and then I started hearing little bits and pieces of, this is what happened with my, one of my dads, Brian Penny was a former player for Waterside back in the day.
Well, that's fascinating to hear, Sonny, and particularly too, like that he played for Waterside. But then, as you were saying, the Whakarau name, the Whakarau family from Tūhoe, is the connection there? Is that right?
Tūhoe originated from Tūhoe, and then my dad Paura, he moved, as they did, they migrated and moved for mahi, for work, and went to Pātia freezing works, as a freezing worker, and then obviously when that place sort of closed down, moved down to Taitoko Levin, Horowhenua, for to work in the timber industry at Crichton's Timber Mill, and that's where my whāngai dad, we basically moved there, and been there since, pretty much been there since the early 80s, or from there onwards. So it's been a good journey regarding the whakapapa and all that, and to this day, I suppose, like, a lot of people out there, we're still learning a little bit more about our whakapapa. Absolutely. And, I'm quite lucky where, I was whāngai, adopted out as a pepe. I was adopted out from, my real mum is Queenie Penny, or Queenie Rangi Haiata. And guess what? Awesome. Queenie and Brian Penny were founders of the Waitangirua Rugby League Club. They were one of the OGs, the originals there.
Well, that's going back a little bit. Awesome history, and great that you've sort of been along on that journey too. And sort of in terms of things like tikanga, that's something you still follow today in your own whānau and your own day-to-day life as well.
Oh, definitely. It's always been there. The seed, I suppose, has always been there. I suppose, I need to chase the reel even more. That will come. It's like everything. Sometimes when you get that calling. And I suppose for me, I'm like the oldest in my lineage. So I suppose there's an expectation that eventually that I'll need to know more of my te reo, speak more of my te reo, be more
awesome.
confident, and getting up and speaking on behalf of the family, on marae's and all that.
Yep. Oh, look, it's important to see that happen.
That's something that's, in the pipeline of.
No, awesome, Sonny. So from there, and I think League does foster a lot of kaupapa and tikanga Māori and Pasifika as well. So it's a good environment. So for you with League, so you grew up in the Horowhenua Levin area. Were you playing League there, or was it too when you moved down to Upper Hutt? Yeah.
I played. I had a rugby union background as a youngster, as a kid coming through school, Horowhenua College and all that. But, we also like watching League, and watch the local Levin Eels play back in the day. And, they were our local team, and, watching some of the old stalwarts running around for Levin Eels. And then I decided, I want to go and play League because, that looks like, you can run with the ball in hands more and bigger hits and, a lot of aggression. And at that time, back in 1984, 85, they had a coach called Gary Willard, former ex-Kiwi. Played for St. George down in Wellington.
Well known,
Played for Marist. But he was a fantastic coach, fantastic motivator. And, so he was coaching in Levin at the time, obviously moved up to Levin, and he was a talker, typical halfback. He talked a lot to Gary Willard. And so he was my first coach that I come across. And, I sort of got to know a little bit of history about him, about being a former Kiwi, gone away on a tour or two, and, a bit of, a legend.
He's well-known Kiwi in that era of the 70s when, the Kiwi team were really on fire. So then, mate, coming to Upper Hutt, what was the motivation that brought you, south down to Upper Hutt?
Pretty much, what sort of clinched it for me, I think Mike Kawiti, who's originally from Foxton, he was up watching a game. We had a local game up in Foxton between Levin Eels and the Foxton Rebels at that time. And Mike has, obviously big whakapapa connections to Foxton through his Kawiti whānau and the whakatihis and all that. So he was up there, and I'm pretty sure Tyrone might have been up there too. They were watching this game between Levin and Foxton Rebels. And, I suppose, I went okay. I, had a pretty decent game, and I pretty much got approached after the game. As I was walking off, I might come up and, says, hey, congrats. And it pretty much went from there, and they sort of sowed the seed with me, whether I was interested in coming down to Upper Hutt in the 1986 season, I think it was. And I says, heck yeah, they're going to offer me a job. They had a job because I think one of our chairman at that, or the chairman at that time at the Upper Tigers was a guy called Dick Cox. And he used to be the manager at a sawmill down there in Silverstream. So so basically I had a job, a timber mill job, because I was working, just out of school and working at the timber mill in Levin then. So I had a job at the sawmill in Silverstream, and I also had accommodation with one of the local supporters, coach, and he had sons that played league for Upper Hutt Tigers, called Mike Omata. From Upper Hutt. And so pretty much, everything fell in place. They had a job for me. There's an opportunity to join a great club on the Vice with, the Tigers then.
So tell us, what was it like? Upper Hutt were obviously at that time in '86. They'd been up there amongst the top performing teams, played in the big national round robin rounds of games. Players like Elvis Williams were there. Morven's coming on the scene. James Pike here. Taina Toma playing. Pretty sharp team. What was it like, bro, coming into that environment?
Well, that environment was pretty hectic because, majority of them players were pretty much fitness fanatics. They love training. They love, like Upper Hutt probably wasn't the biggest, biggest sort of like players perhaps. But one thing I suppose they prided themselves on was fitness. And that was always sort of led by the likes of Mike Queedy, James Pike here, Taina Tuma. He was a rock, old Taina. He was a rock. And them guys were the ones that sort of set them standards. And, I was a sort of young, fresh, just out of school kid coming down there. And, and I enjoyed that sort of side of things. But, them guys were taking it to a next level. So it was sort of like, you either had to be on the waka, or if you weren't on the waka, you'd get left behind, basically.
No, absolutely.
So we used to do pre-season training, off-season training. They used to run up to the the hills, the Rimutaka Hills or whatever, just crazy stuff and all that, and was like doing that sort of stuff, but that built that work ethic, I suppose.
No, it really showed too. Well, look, I remember too, back in those days, there used to be probably just before you came along, there'd be pre-season get-togethers of sort of the top players, and I knew the Randwick guys trained hard, so I knew how we trained, and really the only players that were keeping up with us, or if not ahead, sharing the lead, were the upper hut players and everything that was going, and the level of fitness was high, and we knew that's where all the challenges were going to come from for us, because we could just see how fit the players were. So huge ups to the team. So in terms of big influences on you when you came down, who are some of the fellas around you that gave you the support and probably that you looked up to as a player?
Oh, well, definitely the likes of Mike Whitty, being from up our way, from Foxton and all that. Adrian Shalford, he 1986, he was a big signing for the club, and Wellington obviously had enticed him to the Wellington district and Upper Hutt, got in on him. So he was obviously a big signing, and someone that sort of I looked up, and his training effort, work ethic, and all that. He was a professional. He was a professional in our club and in his training. Tainer, looks at Tainer, James Pike here, Bobby Stevenson, the halfback. Bobby was an ex-Randwick boy too, wasn't he, old Bobby?
Yeah, they came through in the early days. Yep.
Yeah, Victor, just one of the most hardworking and probably one of the fastest wingers in Wellington Rugby League at that time.
Oh, absolutely.
and then the old pros that we had come along. I think Snow Wai, he come to us in '86. I'm pretty sure he did. Obviously, he was another one that was at Randwick, but I think because he was working up at Wetako at the time, Wetako prison. And he was living up there in Trentham. I think it was easier for him to make trainings and just come along, and old Snow, another good man, and we had some good players. So Huey Paul, he was one of the older statesmen in the forward pack. He was an old school prop, and got some great stories to tell about them guys.
Well, like when you mentioned Snow, there's also he was the prison warden, but also Henry Folletti was there as well, and it made sense that they were both living just up the road. That it made sense for them to be able, because they were both at Randwick and then came over, and had a huge impact on the team. Yeah.
Because I think he come over to the Tigers in might have been 88, 89. Yeah. I think about 1988. Because I remember playing against H, when he was still at Randwick, 86, 87, I think, and then I think he come over to the Tigers, about 88 onwards.
Yeah, look, I was just thinking of players that come to mind. David Livingston, I remember he came down. He was quite a bullocking kind of winger that, he kind of looked like a second rower that was playing on the wing, and he just run straight at you and over the top. I'm not sure where he come from actually. Did he come from up your way in Foxton ways or?
He was one of he was one of Sid's Whananga from Turangi. Yeah. He was a Turangi dam buster.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So their running style of his, their galloping sort of leading with their head style. Obviously, I remember many times, you'd see this, he'd kick return on the ball, and he'll just, he's running straight, and he's got that galloping, and he's always leading with his head. And I remember, quite a few times, he'd come up from a tackle and all that, pretty much knocked out and sort of dazed because, he's just leading with his head all the time. And he was crazy, wasn't he?
Yeah, he always looked concussed even off the field. So
yeah, I think it might have been the alcohol off the field after he had a couple of drinks. He was punch drunk again.
No, he was a very good strong runner, mate. And look, in '86 and '87, the Tigers made the finals against Randwick and won those. Bro, talk to us about that. What's it like? You're coming down here. Next thing you're in the big grand final time in '86 and '87.
Mate, that was fantastic. The atmosphere at them games. The atmosphere at the Hutt Rec and Petone Rec. Like the Hutt Rec was, like Wednesday night games at the Hutt Rec. When you get, your top 4 teams playing. Kiernan Razor, then your main game and all that. And we'd get 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people at these games. I got vivid memories of it. Under lights and the crowd and the support we've got. In that era, me personally, rugby league was the big ticket item in town. I'm pretty sure. I know actually that a lot of other people, a lot of rugby union boys and all that. Top rugby union boys, to come to the night games to watch us a lot, and because they loved it. It was the in thing at that time, wasn't it?
And talking about rugby union, it was also a time where a lot of rugby union guys were trialing out league as well. Probably rugby union was going through a bit of a flat stage, and then in terms of entertainment, you went to the Hut Rec on a Wednesday night, and the Tigers were playing the Kingfishers, and Wainui were playing Petone in the other game. You're bound to see some, throw Eastern Suburbs in there, and you've got you could pretty much pick a Kiwi team out of those 5 teams that were running around. The caliber of the players.
I remember my first experience of the Hut Rec was I think it might have been the pre-season final against the Kingfishers under lights at the Hut Rec and all that, and coming up, for me, coming from small living town in the Horowhenua, and then coming up against the lights of Sam Stewart, and co, was like, wow, finally sort of this, how good is this? And I'm pretty sure that night I scored 2 tries and I missed on a hat trick over the line, and it was like, wow, just so it was just little memories like that where I could have, but I could have had 3 tries on my sort of debut on the Hut Rec, and I think we won. I'm pretty sure we won that pre-season final, and then obviously moving on to the grand final at the back end of the year. There was some sort of match. I'm pretty sure that it was one of those games where it was tit for tat, and just one of those games where it was just a pretty intense game of football where no one sort of got out in front by too much. And if I can remember rightly, and I still do have vivid memories of it, and I got a nice little short ball later on in the second half of Big Snow Waihi. You know what he was like as a player. I used to call him the Seal, because when he had that run, and then he'd be through the tackles and he'd be slipping through. And I remember Snow just supporting him on the outside of him, and he managed to get through a half gap and get his arm free. And I just pushed up on the outside and got this ball from Snow. I had one man to beat. That was Georgie Leipold. And I stepped on Georgie and just went straight under the sticks. And that was pretty much the grand final one for Upper Hutt, if I can remember rightly on that game.
Oh, there was a massive era, that 86, 87, you won both final, and then got to play in those Lion Red Cup games, we got to play clubs from around the country, and that was strong too. Some of the teams, like playing against Te Aratu, for example, that have Mark Elia playing for them, and Ron O'Regan. Top Peter Brown, players like that, Sam Panapa. Mark Horo, very, very good players. Look, another, just as we're talking about players that come down, there was the guy with the dreads in the team, Hipper, that played for you guys. Was he also from up your way as well?
Yeah, Hipper. He's Hipper Putini. Hipper Putini. He was the man. He was from Otaki. He was an Otaki boy. He was just he was a really unorthodox style of a player as a lock. Flowing dreadlocks and all that, and had the step both sides, and had the little offloads and the passes and all that. And he was a great player. Was Hipper. He was a sort of I suppose Torren was trying to coach him to fit into a certain mold. I think at that time, and Hipper was a free spirit, and you just let him go out and play. He could tackle hard and take it up hard, but he was a good man. Was all Hipper, and I've had a lot to do with Hippo over the years. I think he's up in Taranaki now. He's still sort of getting around, but he was a great player. But he was what you typify as a so-called warrior, a real warrior, in my eyes anyway.
He had that presence when he came on the field. Just when you saw him, fit. Well, the whole Upper Hutt team was fit, and you see these dreadlocks, and you see that he had a style of running that looked like he was leaning and sort of swaying, and it was hard to tackle actually, because you weren't quite sure which way he was going.
Very much so. But, it was the type of player that you'd rather play with and against, because like I say, unorthodox, and they're the type of guys that are hard to play against, and you couldn't quite read them. Even sometimes we couldn't quite read them, because they do, pull something out of them, do a pass, out the back pocket.
Mate, look, later on you made the Wellington rep team, and Howie Tamati came down and obviously was coaching. What impact do you think Howie had on coaching for you when he came down to the scene from Taranaki?
Yeah, well, Howie was he obviously a high profile man, been there, done that for the Kiwis, and one of our Kiwi greats, actually, Howie, and got a lot of time and respect for him, Howie. And I thought, when he come down, he brought, I suppose, a different mindset, a different, perhaps a different professionalism to Wellington at the time. We had a lot of good players spread throughout all the clubs and all that, and bringing all them players together and to molding them to their tight unit. Well, that must be a hard job to do, but Howie seemed to sort of make that sort of work quite well. And some of the great memories that we had. We beat. Obviously, there was the first time we beat Auckland at the Hut Rec under Knights, big crowd.
Magnificent,
That was 1987. 87. So that was we had the likes of George Mann, Kevin Edo, Peter Brown, Solomona, I mean, some of the names you can, Auckland greats or, Kiwis just about, Davey Watson might have been there, Sam Parnapa.
That's right.
It's just great team. And I remember the night vividly, and I think, we were just up for it that night. I think, the likes of Dave Erie, Morven, I think Morven might have been around then, just Dave especially coming up against the likes of Kevin Edo, and Dave, had an outstanding game for what I can remember. And first time Wellington had beaten Auckland in 75 years, so it was a historic occasion, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember the game, and I remember, one of the moments was young Clark Tarawhiti, running the length of the field, and it was kind of a turning point in the game.
Yes.
And it's interesting you're talking about how he came down a couple of years earlier, and there was a development team. Actually, you and I were in that development team. I remember we did a tour up to Midlands and Hawke's Bay, and then over to the East Coast. Yeah,
that's right. We had a great little team there. I got some, still got some old photos of our team, our squad, and I thought there was a good breeding ground, to obviously for the next step up was our Wellington, our top Wellington side, and it was a nice little breeding ground where we had some and a lot of players that played for that development side actually got, we got our chances up in the top side.
That's right. And I remember Howie back then, there were a couple of things that stuck in my mind at the first training. He said, "This is what I'm all about, and I don't drink, I don't get out on the drink. I expect you fellas to do the same thing." So it brought that whole professionalism, no monkey business. I expect high standard of fitness and commitment. And straight away, you knew what you had to step up to, and if you didn't, then someone else got picked. And I remember there was one thing where a lot of the pivots and the standoffs used to like to just take the first ball and just unload to a runner that was straight off them. And Harry was saying, well, why just give the ball to the pivot? Just give it straight to the runner. Let the runner and let the pivot work behind the ruck. And I think that changed some of the game because we had some pivots that were just standing and passing. And really, when you think about it, well, they might as well just have picked up a runner right on the advantage line, taking the yards,
That's right. Go forward, suck somebody in and just offload, Yeah.
So, that was good for you making obviously making that Wellington team and amongst a whole bunch of stars. Were you in that team that played against England when they came over as well at the Basin Reserve?
Great Britain. Yes, definitely. I was in that side. I come off the bench. I think just before the start of the first half or second half, and that was a great victory. I watched the game again the other week. It's on YouTube, and sort of for wow, we actually had played pretty well that day. And the Great Britain side, had obviously their dirt trackers, their second side, but there's still some great professional players that playing for their Great Britain side, and for us to get that scalp over their Great Britain side was immense. And I think Victor, I forget the end of it.
That's right.
He was the one that went
massive
70, 80, 90 metres.
Well,
and those are some good memories.
And they're all full-time professionals, every single one of that full squad. So all from the UK. So maybe we'll just go there, mate. Then later on, the opportunity came for you to go up to England and play. And I understand you're like Batley, Bramley, Doncaster. Tell us about the journey from Upper Hutt and then over to the UK.
Yeah, well, the journey was, I was always keen to, obviously try myself overseas and all that. I remember at that time back in 87 and all that, I had an opportunity at the same time as like the likes of Tony Kemp and Tawara Nuko and all them boys to, there was that 1 year sort of deal where, young up and comers could go over to the NRL or, the Sydney football competition and experience that, George Mann and all that. And my name was selected on that list too. So there was like 8 or 9 players, Tony Kemp too. And I didn't sort of really pursue that because I sort of didn't really have any good context to sort of, like pretty much you needed to have an agent or someone to, contact the clubs and then, put your name forward and go from there. So I missed out on that, but the UK option, come up later on for me, and I pretty much got a CV together and a bit of footage of my game and sent it over to clubs. And I remember at one time, I think Dougie Lawton was in town and David Ward, he was the Leeds coach.
Yeah.
I think David Ward, the Leeds coach at that time, was in town and he signed up Kipper, John Gallagher.
That was
off the Wellington provincial side. And so, like, I met this Dave Ward and I give him a CV and I says, hey, I'm interested in coming over to the UK. If you have any contacts over there, pass it around. So David Ward obviously passed it around to a few of his contacts over there. And I got a phone call from a club over there, Batley, that were, interested in having a look at me. And they said they were interested. The only stipulation was that, at that time I had to pay my own airfare. But they would take, they would look after me. And, and if I did the business, then I'd look at, signing me up and doing a contract. So pretty much I had to, obviously, take a chance, back myself, give it a crack. And I'd done that. So I paid my way over there and I stayed with Mike Kwiri at that time, who was living in Leeds and playing for Leeds. I think Mike was playing for Leeds and Morven. So that was in, that would have been in 1991. And so I went over and stayed with him, and then I started going to trainings at this club, which was not far from Leeds, and pretty much got my chance. I got a chance in one of the games, and the rest is history, as they say.
No, that's awesome, and I like what you said is like backing yourself, having a crack, and putting yourself out there. I think that's awesome, Sonny, and you seem to have proved that through your career. But so, and playing in the UK, then you moved on to a few clubs though, and then was Doncaster the last club that you played at when you were there?
No, Doncaster wasn't the last club. So basically, after Batley, I had 1 year there, and then they wanted to sign me up again, but the New Zealand Rugby League at that time, there was transfer fees and all that.
Yeah.
So Mike Knowles was the CEO of New Zealand Rugby League. So they put a £10,000 transfer fee on my head.
Wow.
So if Batley wanted to sign me up for the next season, they had to pay £10,000, and that was a lot of money. And it was like, so I was, I had an agent, looking after me. I go, mate, Mike, you're depriving me of my livelihood and all that. Hey, come on, mate, I finished my career in New Zealand. Hey, I'm over here to make a living, and look after my family, etc. So eventually, I think the fee got halved, maybe even got put down to sort of like £2,500 or something like that. So my next club that I went to after Batley was Bramley, and they were coached by former Great Britain coach Maurice Bamford. An absolute legend. So he signed me up because he'd seen me play, and he liked what he saw, and he signed me up, and he paid the small transfer fee at that time. So pretty much I was a full-time player. I worked for the club. I had a 2-year deal with Bramley. So that was awesome. Enjoyed my time there. Had some good success, got promotion. And then Doncaster, they were making a big promotion bid to get into Super League. And, they come sort of knocking on the door and inquired about me. And one of their coaches, he's a former Great Britain coach, Sue Welshman. His name is Tony Fisher. He was a tough hooker. Tough hooker back in the days in the 70s, 80s. And he was tough as they come, and he was a tough coach too. He was one of those coaches that if he didn't like something at halftime, he was a bang the table coach and pretty much give you the finger and pretty much challenge you. If you don't get there right, I'm going to sort you out myself and stuff like that. And it was like, so a lot of the players sort of lived in fear, but I love that sort of stuff, because sometimes as a player, you deserve the kick in the ass, and if you couldn't take that, especially back in our day, old school, if you couldn't take that, you need to look for another sport, don't you?
Yeah. There's plenty of other places you can go if that's a bit too much for you. So, after your career there in the UK, you came back and played again here in New Zealand, eh?
Yeah, I did. I played when I come back home. I was settled back in Levin, and then we found a property out here in Shannon. So, but settled back in Levin and player coach and become the player coach. So pretty much for the Levin Knights at that time. And the Levin Knights, some of our well-known juniors that we've had through the Levin Knights, like some James Tamor, He come through from the Liver Knights. Kenny
Wow,
Edwards.
okay,
He's another Liver Knight junior. Yeah. And then the other club, the Liver Lions, once they come on board, we had two clubs at the Lions, and I'll play for them too. After 2 years, I said, Rick come through the Lucky Forby, another young player, really good, sort of junior upground and uprising, and they played, and at that time, the likes of Dave was still playing, Tony, we had a great team, and we're playing in now the local competition, I think, with Wellington. It's the Lions, so Taranaki, Wellington, and Manawatu, Horowhenua teams. And, it's great going down to Wellington and playing the likes of Wainui, and beating them up on their own patch. And, that was a tough ask, but it was good, and just going up to, it was a good competition, was a good standard of rugby league, and it's a pity we still don't have this sort of thing anymore now. It's sort of died down a bit.
I too.
So,
and there must be something about that area as well, because as you know, currently now Whiti Tara have been winning the competition over the last couple of 3 years here in Wellington. So and some of the names, firstly those upper hut players who come from there, like yourself, Mike, Hepa, and then if you think of the Lomaxes, they're from that area too. There's something going. There's quite a strong league athlete players that are brought up in the area and come through the clubs and then end up down in Wellington as they have. So
in Otaki, the likes of Peter Edwards and
of
Chubba,
course,
they're from Otaki. They went down to Wellington. Peter with the hut. Chubba, I think, started at Randwick and then went to Upper Hut at some stage. Tuckle Graham.
Tuckle Graham.
He's a Foxton boy. Tuckle, Foxton boy, Foxton Rebel, and then went down there. So there's I suppose, an influx of players, that come from this region and went down there and enhanced clubs. Sibby Riker,
Sibby, Sibby, old Sibby,
old Sibby. I think he's still playing too.
Is it? He was a pretty yappy halfback, eh? He was always in your ear, right?
I mean, he had 1 year with us at Up Hut at Sibby, and he was good, but he was one of those. He's cheeky, and I think I remember one game when he was playing for the Hut was might have been against Wainui or something like that. He was giving it to Johnny and
right.
Arnold, I think. Johnny and Arnold, and they actually related.
That's right.
The Queedies and all that. I think Sibby's mum, she's a Queedie or Lomax or somewhere. They're first cousins anyway. They're Alex. So Sibby was giving it to these guys, and I knew, man, sometimes if you can bite, you bite off too much and you can. And I'm pretty sure that there was a game where Sibby pretty much got sandwiched from Arnie and Johnny, and he didn't say too much after that. So I remember that night. I think it was at the Hut Rec or something like that. And Sibby,
I remember it distinctly because I think I was playing on the wing, and so we went up on defence, and I remember Sibby, the opposition winger tapped the ball, ran around Sibby. Sibby gave it to him. And then when he turned around, he just got sort of sandwiched in a bit of a just simulate tackle from and that was it. That was like I think probably just to remind him who was Tuakana on the field.
Pretty much, Andre. I think I'll tell you another halfback that was very similar to that was Gary Freeman. He was, and I remember I sort of hark back to the time I think when we played Northcote at the Hut Rec, and Freeman was the halfback then and playing, and he was just giving it to Adrian Shelford all day, giving it to him. It was quite wow, and and that Northcote side had the Few brothers, the big
that's
props.
Right. Big,
Dreadlock. I think Shane Hanson or Shakers. Shane Hanson was playing.
That's right. Yeah, Shane Hanson.
I think even McLennan. I think Bluey McLennan might have even been playing standoff. I think Bluey might have even been playing standoff at that time, or one of the McLennans anyway.
They might have even had Sean Hoppy coming through at that time as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in terms of halfbacks, cheeky halfbacks, Gary Freeman was right up there as one of those halfbacks that was cheeky and give it to you.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and obviously he could back himself at the end of the day. And, you know, Sibby, you know, during our Wellington era, he was another one of them. And, you know, I know a lot of forwards on opposition sides always wanted to get a halfback if they could. And, yeah,
Well,
that night, I think, at the Hut Rec, I think, you know, he got his comeuppance.
well, and it's the sort of thing too that the refs have to really keep on top of, because they're pushing things to the line. And mate, just talking about that now, you know, you're involved in the reffing side of things, and bro, tell us a bit about that. You know, your involvement from a player, now you're a ref.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, I suppose, you know, when I played the game, you know, sometimes as a player, as you know, you know, we're playing with a lot of you know, players and all that. You know, you get a lot of people that like to referee the game as, you know, playing it sort of thing. And I suppose, you know, I sort of was that guy at times where, you know, I'd always have a, you know, a bit of friendly advice from the referee perhaps, and, you know, sort of, you know, keep him in check if possible and all that. And you know, it's pretty ironic that, you know, now that, you know, I'm sort of, you know, I'm on the dark side sort of thing, and I'm a referee. But, you know, I suppose I look at it, you know, where I've sort of got a lot of experience in the playing field, and I've also coached too, you know.
Yep.
Done a lot. So becoming a referee was sort of like, hey, I'll give us a crack. I referee, been refereeing rugby league for like, yeah, about 8 years now. I referee touch footy in the summer. You know, that's
Awesome.
another good sport that I love in the summer. And yeah, and, you know, keeps me fit, keeps me active. And yeah,
And,
being a referee, it's quite ironic when you're refereeing games, and, you know, players are giving it to you. You got to have you know, a bit of a slight chuckle there. Holy shit, you know, you got to know how to manage things. You got to know how to de-escalate situations and whatnot.
and I heard, you know,
And
just this
sort of,
weekend
and
just
actually,
gone.
Yeah,
You were
yeah,
riffing this weekend.
nice
Yeah.
funny story. Riffing this weekend, and I had the Ramwick footy game. Great game of footy. I like the look of Ramwick.
Yeah.
The Premier side, they're solid, they're tough. They got some good smarts about them. They got a good mix of you know, experienced players and some of the good young players coming through.
Yep.
And you know, I think that they're going to be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. But anyway, I think the final result yesterday was 38-26 or something like that. So it was a great game. Had a lot of flow, had a lot of tries. There was a lot of tit for tats, especially in the first half, and, you know, the game was in the balance. But just harking back to so I had a few Ramwick supporters that were sort of at the back, and they were giving me a bit of chip, you know, and I sort of and one thing was, I think one supporter in particular was sort of, you know, giving it to me, and, you know, get them on side, and they've been on side all day and all that. And I, without sort of knowing who it was, but having an idea because their voice sounded familiar, you know, I'll pretty much give the comment quiet in the deep seats. And then as I was readjusting the line, and I basically saw who it was. It was the old Ramwick legend and former Kiwi himself, Barry Harvey. You know, he was the one that was sort of giving me a slight sort of persuasion, and it was quite funny. And so there was Barry there, and there was also there was Daryl
Marino
was there, and his wife and all that. Ramwick legends, you know, you know, good people, you know, they've been awesome, you know, for their club over the years, and I know them well. They're good footy people, and they're learned rugby league people. So, you know, they know their stuff. They know their stuff, and so it was quite funny. And so I was caught up with Barry after that game. He come up with, you know, a bit of a shake, and I just had a bit of a laugh about it because, you know, Barry, he always had a word to say on the league paddock, didn't he?
Oh, that's right. You know, being a hooker and around the ruck all the time is always, you know, and obviously he's a leader and a captain, so he's not going to sit back and let things just happen if he's got a point of view on it. We know that. And look, I think this is one of the things about league. You know, we can do our stuff on the field. We can have our differences afterwards. We know we're all there for whānau. We're all there for community. Yeah.
And that's it. I think it was more tongue in cheek. He wasn't having a crack at me because I was you know, having a bad game. You know, he actually commented that, you know, it was a great game to watch and there was good flow to it. And I says, well, you know, thanks for that. And, you know, I thought so too because I just thought the standard of footy in the Premier for their Premier game, and he was good. You know, I'm seeing a little bit of in the competition. I'm seeing the likes of perhaps St George, Purua Vikings, Ramwick Footy, and Wainui. A bit of a distinct, perhaps top 5 there. that are now starting to get over their COVID issues and all that.
Yep.
Are getting a little bit fitter. The players are getting match fit. The players are getting some combos going, and the standard of footy is getting a lot better. But that also comes down to perhaps your referees and your touch judges too. If you've got a good crew that are officiating the game and are on top of it and not letting, it's the old story. I look at it like, it's all about the dog wagging the tail, not letting the white tail wag the dog. Hence, don't let the teams, wag the dog. Otherwise, it's going to be organised mayhem. So I figured, I suppose, good officials that can control a match, then you're going to have a good game, because they're not going to try and get away with every little thing like Barry Harvey used to do back in the day. He'll always try and put one over the referee.
Yeah. Mate, well, in terms of good games and good careers, mate, I'd like to thank you for your time in this session, Sonny. I know there's a lot we could probably keep talking about for an hour, but we'll come back around and do some more stuff. Mate, just want to congratulate you on your career, coming from the Horowhenua, from Levin, Foxton, Otaki area, making a big impact on the Upper Hutt City Tigers. Wellington, 2 big games there, beating Auckland, beating England, and then, mate, having a career where you basically, threw your cards on the table, took a bet and put yourself into it, and had a wonderful career over in the UK, and then coming back here. And now as a ref, still putting back into the game. So, Sonny, it's been awesome talking to you. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe, and thank you very much for your time.
Ngā mihi tarangatira ko te kōrero, mana Talanoa. I've been thanks for the opportunity to come on, and I suppose tell a little bit of my story, and it's, at the moment, like you say, it's probably a small bit of my story. I mean, I've got, millions of stories, as you would know, up and down the country and also overseas and all that. But, the good thing about, rugby league is, we might have been at times, arch rivals or enemies on the field. But now that we're getting a little bit wiser, greyer, older, we still love to regale and talk about these stories, and that whakawhanaungatanga that you talk about, Andre. I still think that's prevalent, and now it's quite ironic that now I've actually I'm a Wellington Rugby League referee. I've sort of moved from 102, so pretty much I had to become a registered Wellington Rugby League referee to actually have a chance to officiate in finals, if that's the case. So I've actually done that this year. I've given myself an opportunity to put myself in the mix to hopefully down the track get a semi or final here in Wellington. That's my goal anyway. I know I'm the new kid on the block, and it won't get given to me. I've got to earn it, just like it was when I was a player. But as we said earlier on today, just before in the interview, that I'll back myself.
Now, awesome, Sonny. Kia ora, bro. Thank you.
Ka kite, brother.